Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James and welcome back to our 2D platformer tutorial in Unity. So today we're going to take a look at making our debt look a bit more kind of obvious, because at the moment you start here, run these spikes, you just kind of magically teleport back to there. It feels a little bit empty. It doesn't feel interesting. Do you know what I mean? So the way we're going to do this is we're going to add some particle effects, which are super handy dandy little things in Unity that are really kind of fun and useful to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to game object up here. We're going to click particle system to create a new particle system, and you can see, look, it's already creating lots of floaty little bubbles that we don't really want at all. So what we're going to do, we're just going to rename this one to, we'll call this one debt particle. And since this is a very pixely looking game, it doesn't really fit having these kind of soft round little things appearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here, click on renderer, and instead of default particle, we're going to click this little circle beside default particle, which opens this little selector menu. And these are kind of default things that come with Unity as they are. I'm going to click this white one here. So look, now we've got lots of big blocks, which again, we don't really want big blocks, but we're going to sort that out very, very, very soon. We're going to change the color of this to red. I'm going to go for a little bit darker red. A little bit brighter actually than that. There we go, that looks about right. Because it's a debt animation, so we want it to look like your player is exploding or something like that. We're going to change a few little variables here. Particles are really interesting in Unity just to play around with, so I'd recommend that, like, fiddle around with all the different values that you find here and see can you find something that looks interesting to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the start speed, we'll leave that at 5, but we're going to change the lifetime to 1 of that, and we're going to change the duration to 1. And rather than all these little things slowly floating up away like that, we're going to click on emission here and change the rate from 10 down to 0. And then there's this burst thing here. We're going to click on the little plus sign in the bottom right, click on that, and it creates a little burst that doesn't really look like what we want at the moment, but we'll sort that out. We'll leave it on 30 particles, that's fine. We're going to click on shape here, and as you can see in the scene view here, it's making it from this little cone. If we click on this 2D button, it'll switch back to 3D, and you can see it's a 3D cone, because all the particles work in 3D. There's no like specific 2D particles in Unity yet. Hopefully that'll be something they'll add eventually, but at the moment it's fine. It works. They work perfectly for what we want to work for. So we'll switch back to our 2D view. Go back over here. We don't want a cone because that doesn't make any sense. We'll change that to a sphere. Now look, we got a little explosion of things. It's already starting to look a bit better. We'll bring this radius down to about the size of the player. So what's that? That's about 0.4, around about that. It's close enough. But those blocks are still way too big. So we'll go back up here to our start size, and we'll drag that down to about that size. I think that's a relatively good size. But at the moment they just kind of suddenly disappear and stop. We don't like that. We want them to fade out. So if we scroll down here, and we'll go to size over lifetime here, and hit the little circle beside it to turn it on, then click it. Now we have this little box that can, again, if you play around with different values, if you right click here, it'll see, look, now we have like randomly sized different blocks, which could be something interesting. You might want that, but we don't want that. So we'll click back to curve, and once you click on the block here, it opens this little section. So we're going to go to the right hand side of this, click on it. Oh no, that's not. Why isn't that happening here? Oh no, actually no, even better. What we'll do is we'll use one of these preset patterns here. What you can normally do is like, oh, there we go, add key. That's what I wanted to do, sorry. So we'll add a key, drag it over to the right, and drag it straight down. So now look, now we've got a big explosion of things, and it shrinks down to be nice and small, but it's blasting out way too far. It looks very, very violent. So what we'll do, go back up here again. We'll change the start speed down to 3. So there we go. Now it's exploding out nicely, and what we want to do also is go to gravity multiplier and put that at we'll say 1. So now it looks like it's fallen when you get hit. So that's fine. And we also want to make sure, but you always want to make sure with particles, unless it's something that's going to play the whole time, you have to remember to turn off looping, or else it'll keep playing the whole time. We don't want that. So we'll just hit stop there on that too. So now we've got an effect for when you get killed, but we also want an effect for when you spawn back into life. So we'll just duplicate this one. So click on it in the hierarchy and hit Control and D to duplicate it. And rather than being the dark green, to make it easier to see what we're doing, we'll turn looping back on, just so we can see what we're doing with the particle system. But rather than being the dark red that we have there, we'll make it the same color as the player. So we'll make it a nice kind of green color. So there you go. But we don't want so many particles appearing either. So we'll go to emission. We'll turn this down, maybe only down to 10, say. And I think we'll turn off the gravity multiplier as well. Again, we'll actually make the lifetime even shorter, and the speed will pull down to say 1.5. So there you go. Now we've got 2 little particle systems all ready to go. We have to remember, of course, to turn off looping here as well. So now there we go. Perfect. We should actually rename this one as well. We rename this to respawn particle. So now we need to determine how are we going to make these appear when the player gets killed. And the obvious way to do that is through scripting. So we'll go back to our scripts folder here, and we'll click on Level Manager. We'll double click on it to open it, because Level Manager was what determined where our player respawned to and when he's killed. So we'll open it up here, and then it's very, very simple to add these little animations. What we'll do is go public game object, and we'll call the first one death particle, and we'll do another one again, public game object respawn particle, and there we go. So what that'll do, it'll create a space in the inspector here for us to drag those objects into in a second, which we'll show now in a minute. And here's the little bit of code that handles the respawn. So this is the point here where the player is being respawned, or being repositioned. So before he's repositioned, what we want to do is instantiate, if I can spell it correctly. There we go, instantiate. So what instantiate does is this is what it'll create a copy of whatever object we decide that death particle is, for example, or a respawn particle. So, like for example here, we're going to instantiate our death particle, and it'll create a copy of the death particle and within the world, and we need to decide where is that death particle going to appear. So where we want it to do is where the player was when he gets killed. So we'll go player dot transform dot position, and that'll set the new death particle effect to the exact position the player was when he gets killed. And we also need to go player dot transform dot rotation, because you have to put a position and a rotation when you instantiate an object. And it's very important to remember that, because sometimes I forget that, but and it can create silly problems for you. But just remember, you have to have a position and a rotation when you bring a new object into a scene. So then we make that death particle, and then the player moves to the new checkpoint position, and what we want to do is instantiate the respawn particle effect. So we'll go again, instantiate, open the bracket, respawn particle, and this time rather than putting it at the player that transform that position, we'll put it at the checkpoint position. So we'll go current checkpoint dot transform dot position, and again we have to put the rotation as well. So we'll go current checkpoint dot transform dot rotation, close our bracket and put our little commas there. So now we'll save this, convert the line lines if you need to, and pop back into the game. We'll hit play, and hopefully now, we shouldn't have hit play, that was a mistake. what we need to do is click on Level Manager here. No, even we'll take another step backwards again. What we actually need to do is from our det particle and our respawn particle, we need to create prefab objects, much like we did before with the spikes and the checkpoints. So we'll drag these in here into our prefabs folder, det particle and respawn particle, and we'll actually go ahead and delete the two of these from the scene because we don't want them appearing when the script starts. So we'll go back to our level manager here and see we've got a space here for det particle and we've got a space for respawn particle. So what we'll do is drag our det one here and our respawn one there, and now it knows which objects it has to instantiate at the correct time. So we'll hit play this time and we'll just pop in there, and there you go. Look, we got our det and we got our green coming back to life. Kind of looks like fireworks almost. But like I said, playing around with those particle effects is actually really interesting. But we've got a bit of a problem here because it's happening very quickly. Everything's happening at the exact same time. It's too immediate. So for example, if we go over to this thing over here and we kind of immediately, we can barely see that red bit there. But say if we were suddenly heading left, no, we don't know where the respawn thing happened at all. It's very empty feeling. You're still kind of just magically warping there. So what we're going to do is create a bit of a delay between dying and between respawning back at the checkpoint. And again, it's a very simple little thing to add to the game. So we'll go back to our level manager script here. And now this whole little section here is very this is what handles our deaths and our coming back to life and everything like that. So we want to make it pause between this point where we instantiate the det particle. We want to have like a bit of a delay, and then we want to have it moves the player and it moves it makes the respawn particle. Sorry. So we're going to have a little bit of time between those. So we'll want to determine what that time is. So we'll say public float, say we'll call it respawn delay, and to handle to make the system wait between respawns, there's different ways you could do it. You could have like a countdown timer, so you could have this float value, and we could have another one that takes that value, and then every frame it goes minus blah blah blah, and then when it hits 0 then it'll respawn or start to respawn. But that's very complicated and very kind of convoluted way to do things. What we actually want to do is just create something called a coroutine, which a coroutine happens outside the normal sequence of events. So normally within a script it'll just go straight down from start, then update, and then it'll just keep looping through whatever. So if you call something else, so say for example on our player thing, it goes down through update, goes down to here, and if you press the key button it goes to jump, so then it goes down to jump here, and then once it's finished reading this it goes back to the same point it was and then continues onwards down through the code. But coroutines work a little bit differently. So say for example with this little section here, it would get to the jump thing and it would go down to jump to start processing that, but at the same time it would also continue onwards down through the script. So this little bit of thing will be executed, and then rather than jumping back to the position it was, it would just finish executing this, and then it'll just stop. Which is what we want to do with our respawn player thing, because that operates outside on its own time loop then, and then we can put little pauses in between everything. So what we're going to do is create a coroutine here, and rather than the normal way of doing public void respawn player, for example, what we're going to do is something called public enumerator, and we're going to call this respawn player co. And it's just handy to add the co so that you remember this is a coroutine that you've made. It's just kind of helpful little information. It doesn't matter what you call it as long as you don't call it the same name as respawn player. So inside here we're going to add all this code. So we're going to highlight it, hit Control and X, and paste it in there. And then when the respawn player is called, that's going to start the coroutine. So the way that works is we go start coroutine. Oh, if I could spell that would be okay. Coroutine, there we go. Open the bracket, and then we hit our quotation marks to start a string, and we want to copy this little thing so that you can type it in either, but just so you always get the exact right text, it's easier to just copy and paste it. So paste it in there and close our brackets, hit our commas. So now this will start the coroutine whenever the player dies. And so this is the point where we want to have a little bit of a delay added to the system. So we'll go at this point here and we'll say yield return new wait for seconds. So this is the little system that will determine how long you should pause between getting killed and getting respawned. So in this section we're going to add in our respawn delay here. Close that bracket, hit the commas, and we'll hit save, and we'll just see how this looks now back in the game. And we don't have to add anything to the script here or anything, so we just have to wait for it to compile, and then we'll hit play. And now once it starts running, we'll go into these things. Oh, well, I'm completely wrong. We do have to do something over here. We have to decide what the respawn delay value actually is. So we'll set it to, say, 1 second. Hit play again. We move, and then respawn. But look, this is the problem we've got going on here. Once you get killed, now that we've got like it waits for a second, you can still move and walk around, and that's not what you want to happen. We want the player to stop, or ideally we want the player to disappear. So again, it's a nice and simple way to do that, because we've already got our player object being found for the level manager. So it's very easy then. We have our instantiate the player death, and then immediately after it instantiates, we'll go player dot player dot enabled is equal to false. So that'll disable the player, so you won't be able to control and move him anymore, but you'll still be able to see the player. So to fix that, we'll go player dot renderer dot enabled is equal to false. So then that'll make the player invisible and you won't see him on screen anymore, and that's exactly what we want to happen. But obviously we need to turn both of those things back on, so we're going to copy them, and then after the wait for seconds and after the player's position has been reset, we're going to pop in here the same things, and we'll change the falses on both of them to true, hit save, and we'll pop back into the game now. Hit play once it's finished compiling, and here we go. So we kill the player, oh, he's gone, and now he magically reappears again. And you got a little bit of a delay in between, so you know it's handy in a game like any kind of platformer game and any kind of game in general. It's handy to know what killed you, and if you're instantly teleported back to respawning, then you don't have time to take in how exactly you died. For example, if an enemy shoots you and you didn't see the bullet coming, then you're just like, oh no, how did I die? But now we can die and we're like, oh, those spikes got me. You have enough time to take in what happened, so then when you get back to the same point, you can jump over a spike and you can continue onwards with your game. Kill yourself again. Now, there's one problem with our little system that we've set up here. If I keep dying, and say if you've got a long level and players are going to die lots and lots of times throughout the level, then every time you die, you're creating a new objects here in the system. And that's just going to clog up the memory of the computer and make everything, eventually it's going to start making everything run really slow. So what we want to do is, when an animation is finished playing, we've no more use for it. So we just need to get that out of there altogether. So we're going to create a new script. We go to our scripts here, and we will right click on the folder area, go to create C# script, and we'll call this destroy finished particle. Hit enter, and we'll double click on that to open it. And we're going to attach this script to our particle objects. So basically the purpose of this script will be to go, okay, it checks, is the particle animation still playing? If it's still playing, don't need to worry about anything. But if the particle system has stopped playing, then we go, okay, destroy this object. And it's going to be a very simple script, but it's very useful, and it's something that's it's handy to keep around for your particle effects. So what we're going to do is we're going to go private particle system. Yes, particle system, which is this particle system, we'll call it. And so what that does is create an empty particle system within this script, basically. And then again, as we've done with the animator on the player controller in the previous episode, what we want to do is go, this particle system is equal to get component particle system, which will search for a particle system on the object that is already attached to. We'll hit the semicolons there. Oh, this needs to be a capital P. I don't know why it didn't make it a capital P, but yes. So what that'll do is it'll find the particle system on the object, and then it'll make it be assigned to this particle system in the script. So then in our update loop, what we're going to go do is if this particle system dot is playing, so that determines if it's still playing and still going on. Close that. So if this particle system that is playing, then we know we don't want this little bit of code to do anything, so we'll go return. So that's fine. If it's, what that'll do is, like any code after this point within the update loop, it'll just say, okay, we don't need to care about anything because we know the particle system is playing, so it doesn't matter. So that's fine. So if that's so, the only reason we'll get onto the next little bit here is if the particle system is not playing, and so that means it's finished playing, so we don't need to worry about it anymore. So all we're going to do is destroy bracket game object. So what that'll do is completely remove that object from the system, and it'll free up some more memory for us in the game. So we hit save, and again convert if you need to. Sometimes that comes up, it depends on how your computer is configured basically, but it doesn't really matter too much. So once that's saved, we're going to pop back into the game. We're going to hit play once it's finished compiling. Oh no, we're not. See, this is a mistake I always make. What you want to do is, once you've created your script, you have to make sure and go to your objects and add that script to it. So we'll go add component here. So you'll either appear here, or you might have some other text in entered. So we'll just type in destroy, and we'll have our destroy finished particle script there. So there we go, that's added to that one. And go to the other one, do the exact same thing. And now, if we hit play, the objects should destroy themselves as they're being finished. So we'll just walk into this first object. As you can see, they're there, and then gone. There, new one's there, gone. So now you can keep down as many times as you want, and it won't keep blocking up the system with lots of data that you don't need anymore and you're not using anymore. So there you go. That's the basics of how you add a little particle system to jazz things up within your game. Make things a little bit more interesting, make things a little bit more fun. So thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with more tutorials, and keep making awesome games.